They say 30 is the age when everything starts to make sense. You're supposed to be stable, certain, settled. But no one talks about turning 30 and feeling like you've quietly lost something you once believed in. This is the story of a woman who didn't hate love. She just stopped believing it was meant for her. Until something happened that she never saw coming. On the night she turned 30, Hannah sat alone on her couch with a slice of grocery store cake and a single candle. Her friends had celebrated her the weekend before. Her co-workers had signed a card. Her parents had called to remind her she wasn't getting any younger. But tonight was quiet. Too quiet. She stared at her phone. No message from anyone special. Because there wasn't anyone special. 3 serious relationships in 10 years. 1 ended in betrayal. 1 ended in indifference. The last one ended with the words, "I just don't see a future." After that, Hannah made a quiet decision. No more dating apps. No more almost. No more giving pieces of herself to people who weren't sure. At 30, she told herself something that felt both strong and sad. I'm done with love. Hannah wasn't bitter. She was practical. She poured her energy into her career as an interior designer. She bought herself flowers. She traveled alone once a year. She learned how to fix small things in her apartment without asking for help. Her life looked full from the outside. And in many ways, it was. But sometimes, late at night, when the city went quiet, she felt the absence of something she couldn't decorate or schedule away. She missed having someone who noticed when she was overwhelmed. Someone who asked how her day was and meant it. But she convinced herself she didn't need that. Needing felt dangerous. It started with something ordinary. Her car broke down on a rainy Thursday evening. Of course it did. She stood outside on the side of the road, frustrated, soaked, already exhausted from work. She called roadside assistance. They said it would take an hour. She sighed. That's when a car pulled over in front of hers. A man stepped out, holding an umbrella. "You okay?" he called out. She stiffened. "I've already called someone." "Good," he said. "Still looks like you could use cover from the rain." Reluctantly, she accepted the umbrella. His name was Daniel. He wasn't overly charming. He wasn't trying too hard. He just stayed. They stood there talking about how unreliable cars could be. About how rain always shows up at the worst times. When the tow truck arrived, she handed back the umbrella. "Thanks," she said politely. "No problem," he smiled. "I'm glad you're safe." And that was it. No number exchange. No flirting. Just a small act of kindness. But for some reason, she thought about him that night. 2 weeks later, she saw him again. At a small bookstore cafe she visited on Sundays. He was standing in line, holding the same navy umbrella. She almost didn't approach him. But something inside her nudged gently. "Your umbrella seems to follow me," she said. He turned, surprised, then smiling. "Car trouble?" "Hopefully not today." They ended up sitting at the same table. It wasn't magical. It was easy. They talked about books they never finished. About work frustrations. About getting older and feeling like life didn't look the way they imagined at 20. At one point, he said quietly, "I think we're all just trying to figure it out, even when we pretend we have." She felt seen in a way she hadn't in a long time. Daniel asked if she'd like to meet again sometime. Her instinct was to say no. Not because she didn't like him, but because liking someone meant risking disappointment again. "I don't really date," she said carefully. He nodded, not offended. "Okay." He didn't push. Didn't persuade. Just respected it. And somehow, that made it harder to walk away. That night, she lay in bed replaying the conversation. Why was she so afraid? Was she protecting herself? Or isolating herself? A few days later, she received a message. Unknown number. "Hi. It's Daniel, umbrella guy. I hope this isn't weird. The cafe owner gave me your number after I mentioned we'd met before. If you're uncomfortable, I understand. Just wanted to say I enjoyed talking with you." She stared at the message. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't overly confident. It was thoughtful and respectful. She almost ignored it, almost chose the safe route. But something inside her whispered, "What if this is different?" So she replied. They started meeting once a week. No grand gestures. No intense declarations. Just walks through the park. Coffee after work. Conversations that stretched without effort. Daniel listened. Really listened. When she talked about past heartbreak, he didn't try to fix it. When she admitted she was scared of wasting time again, he said, "I'm not here to rush you. I just want to know you." There was something steady about him. Not overwhelming. Not intoxicating. But grounding. And maybe that's what she needed. 3 months in, she felt it. The shift. The attachment. The quiet joy when his name lit up her phone. And with it came fear. Because love means vulnerability. One evening, she pulled away. Cancelled plans. Took longer to reply. Daniel noticed. When they finally met, he asked gently, "Did I do something wrong?" She shook her head. I don't want to get hurt again." He looked at her with something soft in his eyes. "I can't promise you forever," he said honestly. "But I can promise you that I'm here now. And I'm not pretending." No dramatic speeches. Just truth. And sometimes, truth feels safer than promises. One night, after a long day at work, Hannah broke down. A project had failed. A client had yelled. She felt small and overwhelmed. Without thinking, she called him. He showed up at her apartment with takeout and quiet patience. He didn't offer solutions. He just sat beside her while she cried. At one point, she whispered, "I thought I was fine alone." He brushed a tear from her cheek. "You were strong alone," he said gently. "But you don't have to be alone." And that's when it happened. The wall she built at 30. The promise she made to give up on love. It cracked. Not because she was weak, but because she finally felt safe enough to let someone in. On her 31st birthday, Hannah wasn't alone on the couch. She was sitting across from Daniel at the same bookstore cafe. There was no pressure. No dramatic proposal. Just a small cake. 2 candles. And a man who looked at her like she mattered. "I'm glad your car broke down," he teased softly. She laughed. "So am I." Because sometimes love doesn't arrive in your 20s with fireworks. Sometimes it waits until you're tired. Until you've healed. Until you've stopped chasing it. She didn't give up on love at 30. She gave up on forcing it. And when it finally came back, it wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect. It was steady. And real. She gave up on love at 30. Until a rainy night. An umbrella. And a man who didn't try to impress her. He just stayed. And sometimes, that's all love really is. Someone who stays.